You guys brought the joy, didn't you? So we're talking today, the title that was given to me was The Attraction of Joy. But what I first heard from Dr. Kim was the magnetism of joy. So how many of you would like to know a little bit more about magnetism? Yes. What if you were pretending not to know something, the knowing of which would absolutely free you? Would that be something you might be interested in? That's exactly where we're going. So I want to just turn this a little bit here. So what I decided to do when I heard about magnetism was do a crash course in magnets. So I got on a YouTube version that talked about the polarity of the South Pole and the North Pole, and then when things line up, and how what they do is they magnetize other particles to move with it. And when everything is not magnetized to each other, there's no attraction. Like if I were to take this magnet here, and I were to put it in close proximity to another magnet, they just seem to want to go together. But if I were to put, say, a pencil next to this, it wouldn't do it. So what creates magnetism? Well, in the YouTube that they said that a weaker magnet put in the presence of a stronger magnet amplifies it. You can spin also a magnet and increase its potency. You can run current through a magnet and increase its potency. And it's not necessarily the size of the magnet. What I learned from our physics major over here is that sometimes very, very small magnets that actually come from very rare particles of the earth never lose their potency. So a weaker magnet becomes strong in the presence of a stronger magnet. Now, how does that apply to us? What weakens our electromagnetic field? And give me some ideas. Fear, absolutely. Good. What else? Negativity. What it does, actually, negativity creates a negative magnetism. All of us have that magnetic quality in us. But we're not always truly demonstrating that magnetism in a very strong way, except for two forces, love or fear. And fear will attract also. Have you noticed that? That which I fear has come upon me, right? So another way of increasing the magnetism is through spinning. You see that with the Sufis, when what they call the whirling dervishes, they spin to try to unglue the earth glue, their attachment to this earth. For those of you who know some of the higher Kriya or who have studied Tibetan Buddhism, you know that there's a spinning that goes on with the chakras. And what is that doing? It's increasing our magnetism. So another way of weakening our magnetism is through distraction. Because our field isn't united. What happens with a magnet is it takes all these little iron filings and then it makes them line up and then they're pulled. Before that, they're kind of in all different directions. So have you ever noticed that you're thinking one thing and doing another, and things are happening over here and your energy is fragmented? I'm sure we've all experienced that. What we're actually doing is we're losing magnetism. And when Cindy was giving the meditation, she said, help me to achieve 1 point of concentration, that I may know thee, that I may feel thy presence. So what does that 1 point of concentration do? It focuses. And as Jacqueline was just pointing to the single eye, as we bring the energy up to that third eye, what does it say in Scripture? If thy eye be single, thy being shall be filled with
Joy.
light. That's right. So another form of a weakening is egotism, when it's all about me. Do you ever notice it kind of has a repelling quality? Yeah. So we think we're getting something, because you see, the job of the ego is to take us out of the game. It doesn't want us to be here right now. I'll tell you where to go, what to do. I'll keep you comfortable. I'll keep you distracted from this moment. You know, meditation in Buddhism, they talk about aversions and cravings and anything but this moment. So if I've got an itch, or I get restless, or I get sleepy, or this isn't working. Anything to take me out of here. Because here's where our potency lies, in the present moment. So a form of strong magnetism. Give me some ideas. Love, absolutely. Joy, that's what we're here for. Gratitude. I saw a card at Ananda, and it said, gratitude is a superpower, because it's the great expander. Do you notice sometimes we can be a little stingy with our gratitude? Watch what happens if I were to give you a piece of homework this week. Remember, a few weeks ago, Dr. Kim asked us to be a smile millionaire. But what if you were to be wasteful with your appreciation and your gratitude? You have no idea the impact of what that has. And as Yogananda would say, the instrument is blessed through that which flows through it. So as we bless, what happens?
We are blessed.
It comes back. And even in scripture they say, nothing goes out void. No word, no emotion, no behavior that does not come back to us. Sort of that boomerang. What we send out, we get. So being kind, being calm, even being excited, that raises that energy. Question here though, are we willing to be deeply intimate with the present moment? Have you ever noticed in meditation that everything but calm shows up? And we all go, oh, I can't meditate. What if that was perfectly by design? What if everything that has happened to you, that has taken you to this point in your life, is to refine and to actually open and expand you? It's like burning up a purification process. So when that fear or that doubt or that craving or that restlessness, what if we were to just tend to it? Like a mother would with a hurting child. Now I don't mean, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to emote everything so I can get it all out so I can be enlightened. It's not that. But how many times have we pushed it away? Not that. I don't prefer that moment. I want this moment. I want this moment. Bring it on. And yet, as those things arise, what they're trying to show you is that in truth, who you are is absolutely whole and complete. And what is rising up is anything unlike joy or love to be healed. And how do we heal that when that rises up? And often pretty unexpectedly sometimes, doesn't it? That's what we do. We tend to whatever is showing up in a way that allows it to be. You know, in Scripture, what I've always been confused about this, where it says, "Be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." What the heck does that mean? You know, so we try really hard, we try to be really good, we're efforting at it. How's it working for us? We move along, and we also beat ourselves up a lot, don't we? Did you know that one of the translations of the word perfect means as you are?
Interesting.
What if we were to allow ourselves to be just as we are? Can we trust ourselves? Can we trust life to take us where we want to be? You can breathe. Just live in that question. Don't answer it so quickly. Yes. You know, help with my reverb. Please, I'm not popping. So how do we anchor magnetism? We do it with our breath. Do you ever notice you can't go home without it? Can't leave home without it? And people go, oh yeah, back to that breath. It's always with us. It brings us inside. Why do they call it inspiration? Breathing in spirit. And what the breath allows us to do is to bring that place of noticing, of pausing, of centering. Because as we experience everything from the outer to the inner, the breath is a part of our purification process. So just take a deep breath. And what it also allows us to do is to relax. And to be willing to be in this moment. After all, can we escape this moment? We think we can through drugs, sex, rock and roll, distractions. We think we're not here. We constantly try to take ourselves out. How's it working for us? The more we attune to what's inside us, we magnify that magnet to where it becomes big God, big magnet, little problem. Turn to the person to the left and right of you and just say that for them. Whatever you're going through, big God, little problem.
Big God, little whatever you're doing, big God, little problem. Big God, little problem.
So why are you all smiling? Because you know it's the truth, don't you? So this reminds me of a story. How many of you ever heard of a man named Viktor Frankl? He wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. And what happened for him, he was Jewish, and he was in World War II, taken by the Gestapo, him, his wife, and his children. And they were sent to different concentration camps. And he held in his mind the whole time that he was going to be reunited with his wife and his children. No matter what happened, he just kept holding that vision of one day we'll be together again. And what he noticed, as you can imagine that everything is being taken from you, your dignity, fear is abounding around you. What he noticed is that those who actually had their spirits broken and were already internally defeated, those were the ones that they could smell the energy and they would be taken to be exterminated. And then he also noticed that there were some people that they took the very little food that they had and they gave it to another. And how filled they were in spirit, despite the very little that they had. One time there was a woman who was a nun, and there was a long lineup of people that were going into the furnaces, and as they called the showers. And she was taking them, each person by the hand, and saying, God will be with you. You're not alone. And this one person said to her, oh yeah, that's easy for you to say. And she took her hand and she said, you are not alone, and walked in with her. And then one day it was his turn. And the guards came for him. And how do you relate to what's going on around you when it seems so overwhelming? Did you know that what you sense determines your behavior and how much you'll suffer? How you sense it, how you call it, how you see it, how you name it. We're given the power of the Word. In the beginning, in Genesis, God said to Adam, I want you to name all the animals, all the plants. Name it. In your imagination that you create. And we do it every day. Someone says, oh, what a gorgeous house. Oh, that old rickety thing, or that quaint house. How we see it, we're actually creating a reality, and when we speak it, we're getting agreement. When we breathe, when we're speaking, whatever we're speaking. Sorry, I'm still pumping. Okay. Whatever we speak, what we're doing is we're magnetizing it. We're drawing it. We're saying, I am that. I am. So, you ever notice when people actually have gone to a deep state of joy? A lot of them have suffered. It's not been easy. Think about the Dalai Lama. He was only 16 when he fled, and he was asked to run a country. He said, I've had a very tough life, and yet I'm happy. I see my monks that are at the hands of the Chinese. He says, I don't hate them. I don't like their behavior. And I hold that. And yet I'm happy. I always noticed that with my mom, and she would say, oh, I have no regrets. And she had a hard life, and I look at myself and I go, geez, I sure have a lot of regrets. Why does she say that? What does she know that I don't? What the Dalai Lama is doing, and what a lot of mystics know, is that when we attune to that magnetic field of source, we become super magnets. We're actually amplifying that energy. One of the great ways to do that, look into the eyes of Yogananda. Attune yourself to saints. Listen to their voices. Go to holy places. Pull that magnetism. You've noticed that when you've been in a place that has been saturated with decades, centuries of prayer. That's a magnetism we can draw on. Be willing to be present. I said that before. What happens though when we have a thought, a feeling, or an emotion? How many times do we say, that's my anger? That's my experience. Question for you is, what was that thought before it arose? Where does it go after you no longer think about it? What about that sensation that arises in you? Restlessness, itch, whatever. Where does it go when it has its beginning, its life, and then its disappearance? Where does it go? Is it ours? Or is it a thought, a sensation? This is fear fearing through me. Is it my fear? And for Rhonda, when she talked about being an empath, is it ours? When we think about what our parents have gifted us with, it may not be so positive. That was gifted to them. Is it our thought? Our belief? And Yogananda says, the greater the will, the greater the willingness, the greater the willingness to be present in this moment, the greater the flow of energy. So with Viktor Frankl, the guards came for him. And what they did, they wanted to break him, because they knew something was different about him. So they stripped him of all his clothes. They told him, they got wind. They said, you know what, your wife and your children are dead. And then they started to cut off his wedding ring. And what he then said to himself was, what if we were to trust where life is taking us? That's not what he said. That's what I'm saying. You know, our mind can only take us so far. Have you noticed that? And you notice the power in building magnetism is sometimes about surrendering. Or as Cindy would say, surrendering, good God, Jesus. Allowing. Allowing that this moment has taken you exactly what you need for burning up that which no longer serves you. So that as we go from looking out here to moving into the very center of the circumference of our life, what we get to see is that there's no inner and there's no outer. That God is absolutely all of it. And is there any one little molecule in our being where God is not? What is the energy of God? What's that?
Whatever we get.
That's true. Creation, love, compassion, acceptance, joy, inspiration. I am that. The burning away of everything that occurs to us as we're allowing it to be just as it is, up for our healing. If we allow it, if we notice it, if we tend to it, what you notice that all the mystics know, you are absolutely, totally loved. There's nothing you have to do or be come, you already are it. You have no idea how precious you are, how amazingly loved you are. Trust where life is taking you. And here's a nice saying, it's easier to ride a horse in the direction it's going. Instead of, no, don't give me that. What if that was the very thing to burn up that which we're not willing to experience? You know, they say depression, unfelt, leads to deep feelings of unworthiness and invisibility. What if we're willing to just notice it? As there it is, not my depression, my sadness, their sadness, up for just being noticed. And that witnessing presence, we're bringing the very presence of God into that. Tune yourself to that ray which is your originating nature. That nature is the indestructible joy, despite whatever goes on, whatever's pleasant or unpleasant. I have a friend who's a Tibetan monk, and he has a girlfriend. He's a young guy. And when his girlfriend is yelling at him, he's smiling. Now, don't recommend this. Don't recommend this. It doesn't work, does it? And why is he smiling? He says, well, I know everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I know she's going to stop yelling at me sooner or later. So, you can relate to that. So what we need to do is allow. In Scripture it says, ask, and it will be given, so that your joy will be full. So back to Viktor Frankl. He was standing there, and they were waiting. They wanted to know, as they took everything in the outer away from him. Andrew Harvey once said, everything in life is designed to disappoint you, so that ultimately you turn to God. It's the grand Leela, the grand divine play. And why is that? Because it's who we are. So as he was standing there, what he said was, they can take, he said this to himself, they can take everything from me. My wife, my children. But the one thing that they cannot take away from me is my right to choose happiness, to choose joy. Every time we breathe and anchor, we get that opportunity to choose, don't we? We get the opportunity to respond versus react. And when we notice ourselves react, have that compassion to choose again. So what if we didn't? What if we said, forget it, it's too much? What if we didn't use our greatest gift to choose? Well, this is what Yogananda says. No matter how tightly we close our eyes, the magnetic rays of ever-joyous spirit is constantly trying to penetrate the closed doors of our minds. Open the portal of calmness, centering, knowing our oneness, knowing our own natural state of who we are as joy. And we will find the bright sun of joy within us. So what if you did? What if you did allow yourself to magnetize yourself to the very source that reminds you, remembers, puts together, takes away the forgetfulness of who we really are. This is what Yogananda said in his prayer, his poem, Samadhi. Vanish the grosser lights into eternal rays of all-pervading bliss. From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt.
From joy I came, for joy I live. In sacred joy I melt.
God bless you.